Welcome to the Private Practice with Soul podcast. My name is Dr. Storme, and I help private practice owners align their business back with their soul's calling, with their big vision and with their soul's purpose. Unlike other private practice coaches, I've traveled the world in search of spiritual resources, spiritual tools, education and information so that you can have the transformation that your soul desires and needs so that you can up-level your business. How much fun is this? I love it so much. Guys, if you're not already a member of the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group, please check out the show notes. I would love for you to be there. In the meantime, thank you so much for pushing play today. Let's begin. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Private Practice with Soul podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Storme, and I am so pleased to be here this morning because we have a really powerful episode for you that I know you are going to really benefit from. I want to begin though by welcoming all of the new subscribers. I'm so pleased that you're here, and yes, thank you so much also for sharing the podcast with colleagues. It's my highest intention to serve you as best as I can. So without further ado, today's episode is a very special one. It came as a request from somebody who was wanting some guidance around managing our self-care and our private practices during hardships. And I want to say thank you so much for requesting this topic because we haven't actually covered this and it's super important. So I think the place to begin is to understand, first of all, what is spiritual self-care and how is it different from regular self-care? Think about that for a moment. As I see it, physical self-care is really around how we look after our body, isn't it? It's going out for walks, it's eating clean food, it's making sure we get enough sleep, it's all that kind of stuff, right? And then we have that sort of mental, emotional self-care, and that's really geared around our body, our mind. That's really geared around our mind and making sure that our mind is healthy and well, okay? But spiritual self-care is different. Spiritual self-care is really around us being able to take care of our soul. We have a mind, body, and spirit, don't we? They're all equally as important. But some of the things that are missed with self-care is looking at this spiritual side. And you know me, I'm all about the spiritual side. It's what makes me different from the other private practice coaches. And it's a space I'm honored and blessed to occupy. But I think it's important to understand too that spiritual self-care activities are really focused on nourishing, replenishing, and rejuvenating our soul self because we want to ensure that this part of us is just as healthy and just as well as the physical and the mental bodies. And we sometimes also need to restore our soul self to a place of wholeness. So, the definition of healing is about returning you to wholeness. And so sometimes we might find ourselves experiencing maybe a sense that we need to be healed on that sort of inner level, okay? And so some flags for that might be maybe you're not feeling your usual self. Maybe you're starting to feel like you're doubting yourself or you're questioning or you're a bit lost or confused or something's off, something's just not right. They might be little indications that it's time to do some spiritual self-care, okay, to help return you to your usual state of wholeness, okay? It is really around focusing on our inner self on a much deeper level, okay, and less about all that external stuff, okay? It's not about face masks. It's not about face masks. It's not about candles. It's not about any of that stuff. Spiritual self-care is the inner work. It's cultivating intuition. It's cultivating trust. It's connecting with yourself, with spirit, with source, with your higher self, whatever you want to call it, with energy, with God. It doesn't matter what you call it, but you know what I'm talking about. It's that spiritual, soul-based connection. Okay, so the next thing to really think about is, okay, I get that. So how do I care for myself spiritually? And you know what? This is such a great question, and it's going to be different for everybody. Just like other self-care is different for everybody, and everybody has a different idea about the perfect day at the practice and stuff like that. It's the same for spiritual self-care. Remember that it's really about your connection with yourself first. Okay, we want to try and connect to the inner you and your higher self, and it's by tuning in to this part of yourself that you're going to be able to identify not only what you need in the moment, or not only what you need right now during this experience you're having of hardship, but it's also the source of where your answer is going to be in terms of the tonic or the remedy that you need. And this is what I mean when I say, success in your private practice is an inside job. Your how you function and how you show up comes from the inside out. All right, it's all this spiritual inner work that we need to be able to do. Okay, and once you understand how to tune into yourself and find out what's not going well or where the areas are of concern, you'll also be able to use those same tools and strategies to find the answers from within. And this is something that we go into more deeply in the private practice method. But for now, what I can do though is share with you 5 practices that you can start to do that can help you cultivate that spiritual self-care so that you can still remain, operating on a high vibe plane, even in the face of difficulties and hardships that are happening in the practice. The very first thing that I find really helpful, and I hope that you do too, is shifting the energy in your space. So whether that's at the practice itself, or if you're working from home and you're working in your study or something like that, what we want to try and do is shift the energy in that space. And the reason for that is because that energy can become, energy is moving all the time, as you know, and it fluctuates. It's always in a state of flux. It's never constantly high vibe. It's never constantly low vibe. It's moving all of the time. But without cleaning that energy regularly, it's like kind of, what's the best way to describe it? It's kind of like if you didn't vacuum your study or if you didn't vacuum your practice, all that dust is just going to build up, right? And how's that going to affect how you feel, and how's that going to affect the vibe of the practice? Well, it brings the vibe down. And then when you go and vacuum and dust the practice or your study, you just kind of feel lighter as a result of doing that. Isn't it so nice to see that change and to see that improvement? Maybe you feel that way after you declutter something, it feels really, really good to see that change. Well, it's because it's affecting you vibrationally. And so apart from the physical world, which is not spiritual self-care, we want to try and tap into that energetic space for you. And so what you can absolutely try and do is clear the space energetically. And there are many, many different ways that you can do that. One way that I like to do, but I don't do it that often, I probably only do it maybe 4 or 5 times a year, is I have some sage. And all that I do is I light that sage and I, say an invocation about, what my intention is. So maybe my intention is to call in the energies of the highest good and the highest wisdom, the highest love and compassion and guidance to come and clear my space of the energy and to replenish that energy and to take away or transmute any unwanted or negative or low vibe energy into something that's more pleasing and positive for the good of myself, my practice, and all others. right? And then what I will do is I will just take that little bit of sage and I'll, sage around the computer, the desk, my chair, my filing cabinet, wherever, just that space. I find that sage, depending on what type of sage I use, can sometimes smell a little bit overpowering. So I do like to leave a window open. And I think too, in my mind, I like to imagine that the unwanted energy that's going to be transmuted is leaving out through my window and it's allowing fresh energy to come in. So I like to do that. But something else that you can do to help you clear that energy for yourself in your space is to maybe light a stick of incense. Or maybe you want to start, using some of your crystals. So there are some beautiful crystals that are used for cleansing. They absorb energy and then they transmute that energy and release it back out. And my favorite one for that is selenite. Selenite is spelled Selenite. And you can get it in wands or sticks. So my sticks are about a foot long. I've got about 20 of them placed all at different places in my practice and in my study at home. I have selenite candle holders. I put little tea light candles in them and I light them before I do all my coaching sessions, just so I can make sure that I'm bringing good, clean, high vibe energy to all of those sessions. Okay. So the other thing that you can do to clean the energy of the space is even vibrationally through music. All right. So it can be any music that you like. It's just got to be music that helps you feel like that vibration's been lifted, that there's been some nourishing, that there's been some healing through that music. And you can jump onto YouTube and you can listen to, a meditation music. Some of my very favorite music for clearing and cleansing a space is called solfeggio music. Some people pronounce it solfreggio, Solfreggio. And I just think it's so beautiful. And I can just leave that on, close the door to my study, leave that music on, and then I come back in an hour later and it just feels so different in my space. Okay, that's the first strategy. The second tool that you might want to use, and I know I go on about this a lot, but journaling is so important for your spiritual self-care because, as I said before, that spiritual self-care is that connection with the inner you. And journaling is a beautiful way to strengthen your connection to your soul. It helps you also develop your ability to intuit what you need at any point in time. Journaling allows you to process the emotions that are coming up for you. It allows you to process the thoughts that are coming through for you. And it allows you to find guidance from your soul about what action to take. I am such an advocate of journaling because I think it's so empowering, and because I work with women in private practice who are often coming to me from a space of wounded masculine or wounded feminine energy. Journaling is one of my favorite things to work with them on, because by it being so empowering, it means that they are better able to start to trust themselves again and stop looking for external validation about whether or not they're on the right track. When you see this happen, it takes a little bit of time, but when you see these women start to begin trusting themselves, well, it's just like they hit this tipping point, and then all of a sudden they start making these decisions that are more in alignment with what they want for their practice, and they're lit up, and then they're doing lives on their Instagram and lives on their Facebook that they never would have thought of doing, or 6 months ago or 12 months ago. They're suddenly able to embody their true core essence because they're nourished and strengthened to that inner connection with their soul. I share some of my most powerful and favorite prompts in my group. It's the private practice mentorship group this week. And the women in there have been having some amazing results with it. They're 3 prompts that I use myself every day, and they really help you around setting your intention and manifesting the things that you want to see in your practice. So absolutely, journaling, guided journaling, is a very powerful way for you to practice spiritual self-care. The third strategy or tool that I have for you doesn't sound as sexy, I'm afraid, but it's really very important for looking after your energy, and that's around allowing yourself to say no to things. It's really around honoring your energy, understanding that you do need time to refill your own cup. And I know that some of you find that really hard to hear because you want to be able to just default into your doing mode, and I'm asking you now to honor the being mode, being in your own space, allowing yourself to say no, allowing yourself to unplug from your social, to be quiet and to just be, can be really beautiful and calming and so effective because it allows your soul to rest, to take a break. And when your soul can rest and take a break, you're giving it permission to replenish and to restore. Okay? Your soul needs a break so that it can heal. It needs to recharge its batteries, just like your physical body does, and just like your mental body does. Your spiritual body also needs that downtime. And so, managing a hardship in your private practice through spiritual self-care would look like you finding a way that feels comfortable for you to give your soul that break that it needs. Okay? The fourth tool, and this is another one that I love, and I try and do it every single day, is to really connect with the earth. And it doesn't have to be anything too mystical, don't worry. But something as simple as, I've got my dog Gabe, and he loves to run around in my backyard and my front yard. So I will make a point of going out there with him. And sometimes I just kick off my shoes and I'll allow myself to just enjoy the experience of standing there for a moment just with bare feet. And I'll close my eyes and I will just allow myself to ground and to connect with the earth and to allow myself to feel, yes, you are supported. You're supported by the earth below you. And really try and sense into that connection with the earth and that connection with support, to feel it doesn't matter what happens. I've always got this connection to the earth. You could say you also have a connection to the sky or the sun or the moon. Another thing that you could do is perhaps you could step outside of an evening and you could just allow yourself a moment to look up, okay, and see the stars and just wonder and just be in awe and just feel connected to the cosmic universe, if you like, okay? There are so many ways for you to ground. And there are so many things that you could do. There are grounding meditations that you could do where you imagine that, from the bottom of your feet, it's kind of like roots of a tree going down, 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 down into the earth, and your body becomes that tree trunk. It's so stable and it's not going anywhere and it's secure and it's firm and, all of those sorts of things. So lots of ways that you can help yourself feel grounded. And when you're able to do that, that's good for you on a soul level because it helps your soul come home. It helps you feel connected again. Okay. And then the last one that I love to do is I really am such a big fan of oracle cards. Now, I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but honestly, I think maybe you just have to expose yourself to a few different decks before you find the right one. I mean, I've got a million decks and a lot of them I don't use. I tend to go to, 3 or 4 decks, but I had to buy those other decks first to see whether or not I felt connected to them. I think it's kind of like wearing clothes. There's so many clothes in the wardrobe, but we tend to cycle through 3 or 4 outfits. But the value for me, anyway, of having an oracle card is if I'm trying to manage a hardship in my business, sometimes I can feel overwhelmed by that, and I can feel heavy and resistant and confused and all of those kinds of low vibe feelings. So going to an oracle card, they only ever come from love, right? Which means it's going to be guidance from a soul space for you. And who wouldn't want loving guidance first thing in the morning before they start to go about their day? So of course, having a little practice where, maybe before you open your laptop, you say, I'm going to commit to shuffling these cards, and I'm going to ask for guidance around what I need to focus my awareness on today. And allow a card to jump out at you and turn it over and have a look and just see what that guidance says. And it's always going to be loving guidance. It's always going to be compassionate guidance. It's always going to be guidance with the intention of supporting you, okay? And so keeping that card near your laptop or near your computer or in your workspace and being able to consciously reflect on it at different points throughout the day can absolutely be very nourishing for your soul, because it gives you that North Star, okay? It helps not only ground you, but it helps guide you for how you want to focus your energy and your intention for that day. So there are 5 spiritual self-care tools that you can use to manage hardships in your private practice. And if you would like any guidance or any support around any of these tools, all you have to do is email me. I'll put my email address in the show notes for you, but it's just hello@brooklynstorme.com. And I want to thank you so much for listening to another episode of the podcast today. If you liked it, please leave me a review and share it with any of your colleagues. Thank you so much for listening. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Private Practice with Soul podcast today. If you're looking for clarity, if you need help with branding, your processes, and bringing everything into alignment with your soul's purpose for your private practice, head to the show notes and click the link for more information about the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group. You are going to love it. I can't wait to see you in there. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.